Hello, and welcome to another episode of Within the Game podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Wexler, and this episode is with the beach volleyball legend, Phil Dalhauser. Phil is coming off back-to-back AVP championships the last 2 weekends with partner Nick Lucena. They won the Monster Hydro Cup 2 weeks ago and the Wilson Cup this past weekend in Long Beach, California, bringing his total tournament victory count to 100. This milestone puts him on a small list of legends as the 5th most winningest player ever. In this episode, we get a glimpse of Phil's routine, his intellect, and how he continues to give back to the game. I hope you enjoy this episode, and don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share. Thanks. All right. I'm here with Phil Dalhauser. Phil, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Phil, the Thin Beast. You went to the University of Central Florida. You're a 7-time Manhattan Open champion. You carry the longest winning streak at 12 years with at least one FIVB title on the World Tour. You're a 3-time Olympian and soon to be a 4-time Olympian with Nick Lucena. And you're an Olympic gold medalist from 2008 with Todd Rogers. You're also the head coach at the Phil Dalhauser Beach Volleyball Academy, which is www.pdbva.com. I'll leave a link to that below. And your IG is at Phil Dalhauser. Again, Phil, thanks so much for being here, man.
Thank you. Thanks for the intro.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get right into it. So the first question I have for you is, what does living an inspired life mean to you?
I would say, I think that basically, you could sum it up in one sentence. Really, is the old saying is this: you enjoy what you do, you don't work a day in your life.
Yes.
I think that kind of sums it up in that answer or that question.
I love
answer
that.
to the question.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. How do you stay inspired outside of the game?
What inspires me is competing to be the best Phil Dalhauser. I think a lot of people make a mistake. They compete against the best in their sport or whatever, but they go about it the wrong way. I think Michael Jordan talked a lot about this. Is he always competed against himself, his best self, and while everyone competed against him. And I 100% agree with that.
I love that. That's awesome. Let's talk about practice. What does having an inspired practice mean to you?
Well, definitely practice with some sort of intent. For me, like in beach volleyball, like I would take an intent to focus extra on passing, which probably is my weakest part of my game. So that's usually number one on the list for me. Or some days, I'll pick other skills to really focus on, because for me, it's really hard to pick every single skill.
Right.
So I think it's good to just break up practices and, focus on one or two skills and go about it that way.
That's great. So this whole project is about how to stay inspired in and out of the game for the youth athlete. So talk to me a little bit about an uninspired practice and some of the tools that you may use in those moments to try to snap out of that.
Oh, man, that's a work in progress for me still, because, the practices tend to, when you've been playing for so long, it's like, go back to Allen Iverson practice.
Right.
Sometimes you're just like, you're not into it. So I wish I had a good answer for you, but really, I think the best thing would be just to focus on the present moment, because the second you think about, dang, I got another hour and a half of practice,
right?
Now you're basically torturing yourself. So if you could just focus on what's in front of you, I think that's probably the best way to go about it.
Yeah, I like that. Let's talk about a game, because they're definitely different, right, from practices and games. So what does an inspired game feel like?
One that's focused And focus for me, it can be a little iffy sometimes, especially if there's matches going on other courts. I'll catch a play here and there, and I have to bring my focus back to, what I'm doing. So definitely focus. And again, you'll probably hear me say a lot is bringing yourself back to the present moment. And that's the best way to go about it for me anyway.
I love that. Are there any games that come to mind when you think of that word, inspired game? Like the gold medal match, or?
Well, yeah. But there, I've I'm sure you've read a lot about it. I feel like I was in the flow state, like, sorry, someone's at the door.
They're in the flow state too.
Oh man. They're always in the flow state with barking. But I wasn't thinking during that third set. I was just reacting, and I think that's a way the best way to do anything, whether it's writing an email or reading. Just don't think about what you're doing. Just react. Like when I'm trying to write an email, which I hate doing, like so many things are going through my head. And man, if I could just turn it off and just focus on the email, I knock it out in 2 minutes, and I think that goes, that spreads through everything. So not that there's like a flow state with email, but the point is your brain gets in the way of a lot of things. Your mind does.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I actually have a full section on flow, so let's hold off on that for a second. I want to come back to that. I just wanted to kind of finish this thought up. The idea of practice and game. How does the feeling of an inspired practice carry over to an inspired game?
Well, it's basically perfect practice, right? What's the saying? Perfect practice
makes perfect.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you practice with the same intensity that you play, then your game, it's pretty simple. Your game's gonna get better, But it's easy to goof around the practice because there's no ramification. There's no, you don't. If you lose a drill in practice, at the end of the day, who cares?
Right. Okay. Let's move on to mindset. Give us a little glimpse of the Phil Dalhauser mindset pre, during, and post training sessions and games. Just a little glimpse.
Well, I always do the same boring warm up for the most part, which I probably should change up because it's good. I've been doing it for years, but I feel like it gets me focused. I focus on the movements, and it's almost like a warm up for my muscles and my brain. Because like I said, focus sometimes can be a challenge for me. When I used to live with Nick, Adam Roberts, and Matt Heath, two guys that Adam Roberts has been playing forever. Matt played a little while ago, and they called it Philville. Like, I'll be spaced out, thinking about whatever. I'm like, what's going on in Philville? So that's just an example of how I can be unfocused sometimes. But so if I could get a good warm up in with, focusing on the movements, and then that will carry over. It's almost like I'm warming up my focus, and that carries on to the game. And then after we win, then I like to reflect on what I did, my mistakes, but not dwell on my mistakes. I want to learn from them, and then I like to think about what I did well and how I can keep doing that.
I love that. Let's expand on that a little bit, because my next question is about self-talk. What is your self-talk during the play and in between plays?
Well, during a play, there should be zero self-talk. It should just be pure reaction. But after a mistake, I kind of have like a few step process. I'm like, all right, if I hit a ball out on the angle, I'm like, okay, what? I analyze the mistake. Did I went too sharp, or I mishit it, and I try to correct it for next time, and then it's done out of my head, because a lot of people, or a lot of players on every level, will be beating themselves up about that play, 5 points in the future,
right?
And they're not completely focused on what's in front of them. They're still like, oh, if I would have just hit it 1 inch further to can't do that to yourself. So that's kind of my my little step process. And sometimes I'm guilty of like, oh, it would have been so sweet if we got that point, like, especially there needs to be a study in beach volleyball, and I don't know if this is in indoor as well, but if a team has a good point opportunity, a real point opportunity where they can earn a point on their serve, and they miss it, whether getting blocked or hitting out or whatever, the next point, I got to think they lose more than they win. It's got to be over 50%, because they're still in their head about the last point. Oh, we should have got that real point, and it's a 3-point swing,
So it's like, are you talking about like judgment? Like, oh, we should have, like, that's like judgment.
It's right? More, yeah. I mean, it could be judgment. It could be like, oh, it would have been sweet if we got that point, that gives us a 3-point lead, or whatever, or we could have used that point, like whatever it is. They're thinking about the last play and not about siding out.
That reminds me of what Karch said about unproductive thoughts, because that thought process doesn't really like contribute to the goal of what you're trying to do. So yeah. Cool.
So that's why, like, say if we have a real point opportunity and we miss it for whatever reason, analyze it real quick, then next, thinking about passing now, or getting ready for a pass.
Cool. Yeah, I got you. Well, let's expand on that even more, because our sport, beach volleyball, has so much stoppage time. Other sports have that as well, but man, I counted the stoppage time one time, and I think it's over 10 minutes in a given set, not even a match. Wow. So how do you utilize that stoppage time? I think you mentioned a little reflection, but yeah, just give us a glimpse on what you're doing in that stoppage time.
Well, sometimes my eyes will go over to the other court, which isn't ideal. But really, it's what would be ideal is play is over, analyze it real quick, then on to the next. Like if you're serving, all right, where do you want to serve? Which way is the wind blowing, like all that kind of stuff, constantly thinking about what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And then, you're prepared. Obviously it's impossible to run through every scenario. At that point, your brain is so full, but, you're somewhat prepared on during the play, and then you're not thinking, you're just reacting,
Yeah. Awesome. Let's move into emotion, Phil. Emotions are a big part of all sports, and I'm really interested to hear what you have to say about it, because a lot of champions, are able to utilize that emotion, manage the emotions that are happening during any game. So what are the differences and similarities in emotion from an uninspired game and an inspired game?
I read this book maybe about a year or two ago called Chop Wood, Carry Water. or carry water, chop wood. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
I've heard of it.
But
Yeah.
this is right up your alley, I think.
Okay.
And there, he talked about as far as emotions go, like people think, oh, I get fired up. I got to be, you know, like a 10 out of 10 of fired up. But that is impossible to keep through a whole match, right?
Right.
And he talks about you probably should be 4 or 5, where you're just level-headed. You have a little bit of fire, just enough to kind of keep it burning, right? But you're still thinking clearly, because if you get too emotional now, you're not thinking clearly. So I really like that, and I'm probably, as far as emotion goes, like a 1 or 2. You know, I could probably bump it up a few points on the fire scale, I guess. And I wish I would have read that book a long time ago, but I think it just came out recently, actually.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe not. You've had such amazing results, and you know, I was actually talking to Todd about that, and I asked him about the emotional side of winning and losing, success and failure, and specifically your guys' run. And I was like, man, I never really saw any emotion from you guys. And he said, like, yeah, never really too much need for it. I was always trying to conserve my energy and stay efficient, you know.
Yeah. There's definitely like you're flexing down every point. You know, that takes energy.
Yeah.
Especially on a hot day. Sometimes I've heard guys like, oh man, I almost passed out when I was yelling. I'm like, man, I'm not trying to pass out fast, you know. So you know, some guys need that, like that fake fire, you know, we call it fake fire, to get them going, which I've never figured out how to get that rolling, which, you know, could have helped me, definitely, you know, like could have made me 1% better, and over time that 1%, you know, that could have won 3 or 4 more matches over my career, which could have led to more titles or more wins. You never know.
Interesting. Just staying on that for one more second, emotions. If a player, let's say you're coaching and you notice a player is having a tough time with emotions, or having a tough time separating emotions from outside of the game, you know, their personal life, something in their family or something.
Sure.
And they're not able to separate it, and they carry it over to their practice or a match. Like, you know, what are some tools that you could offer that player?
Well, you know, I hate to go back to just staying in the present moment, you know, taking a couple deep breaths, feel the air, come out, come in, you know, that whole deal.
Yeah,
and
that's great.
That will calm the nerves and put you in the present moment for the most part. Really, I think that's all you can do, because sometimes the mind is hard to shut off.
Yeah.
Like
Totally.
Sometimes it's like, just shut up already. You know, it comes up with, our minds come up with the dumbest like scenarios, and you play this whole scenario out, and you're like, what? I just wasted 5 minutes of my life thinking about if I want I don't know, pinto beans or black beans in my burrito, you know, like just silly stuff like that.
No, I think that's awesome. You know, I think sports in general, specifically beach volleyball, but any sport is, it's just an opportunity to come back to the moment. You know, there's nothing else going on except that point or that situation. So I completely agree. So that's a really good segue to flow. You mentioned the flow state earlier. Let's talk about that now. My question is, can you identify when you're in the game, in the flow or in the zone, or that flow state that you mentioned?
While I'm in the flow state, no, and I think that would be kind of a bad thing, because now your mind, you're thinking about it, right? And that probably take you out of the flow state.
Interesting.
But going back, like, I was not thinking, I was just reacting. reflecting on it, I think is fine. But if you're thinking, then already you're back in your mind. Mind isn't. I feel like the mind is an enemy. Like once you can control your mind and your emotions and everything, which takes a lot of practice, a lot of meditation, and all that, then you become better, I think, in every aspect of your life. Professionally, like I have kids and a wife, so like as a family man, and it's a work in progress.
That's awesome. Can you practice being in the flow state, or does it just come?
Oh, I think you could practice being out of your mind, like not in your thoughts, basically, is what I mean by.
What does that? What do you mean by that?
So when you're thinking, right, that's energy. Like, my wife could be talking to me, and I'm thinking about, whatever it may be, which takes me out of this conversation. I may be 75% in and 25% in my mind, right? In like my thoughts. Sometimes it's even more 50-50. And she's like, "Are you even listening to me?" She could tell I'm thinking about something else. I'm sorry, I might have gone off a little.
No, this is great.
Here.
No, this is awesome. Keep going.
But so if it comes back to being 100% focused on the present moment, out of your mind, out of your thoughts, basically the same thing.
I love that, Phil. So when you're practicing, let's say you find yourself in that flow state, which is difficult in practice. I feel like it's maybe a little easier when there's something on the line. But let's say you're in practice and you find yourself in there and you can't miss and everything's just flowing and you're in that flow state. Can you bank that feeling? Can you say, I want to access this later?
I think it may be different for other people as far as finding flow states in practice versus matches, because some people are great practice players because there's no pressure, and then there's other players that are terrible practice players. They don't want anything to do with it. But then once they have the pressure, now they're like, now they're focused. They play way better. So I think it's different for every athlete, depending on how well they deal with pressure. But as far as banking flow, I don't know. I think it's something that you get. It comes more as you get better with staying in the present moment.
Love it.
So
I agree.
I don't know if you could really bank it.
Okay. Yeah. No, I would agree. I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about that 2008 Olympic run, because I watched an interview with you and I think you mentioned something about the first game you lost to the last seed.
Latvians, yeah.
And how you were kind of in your head, and then you made this, and then you made this incredible comeback. So just, can you talk a little bit about what was going on and how you were able to come back and overcome that?
Well, we the day before that match, it was the opening ceremonies, and it was our first Olympics, and we were on our feet for like, I don't know, 7-8 hours or something like that. It was super long day, and I remember thinking in warm-up, so like, man, my legs are not working, and from then on, all I was worried about was my legs, and that was that it just snowballed, and so I was in my head. All my thoughts were about my legs, and then my glasses started fogging up, and like, then I was like, popped out the lenses, whatever, and I totally was not focused on the volleyball. I could have told Todd, I was like, hey, my legs are dead. Let's run a lower set. I'm gonna try to chop it around and just kind of not pivot, but go with another game plan. I guess I can't think of the word. It'll come to me. But we after that match, obviously I was bummed out. First Olympic match. We were the number 1 seed in the tournament, and we just won the last 3 FIVBs were like rolling,
Right.
And it was definitely like a hit to the ego, I felt like we couldn't be beat. But we were supposed to lift that night after the match because we had a day off, so we decided we would lift after our matches. So we lifted, and I was just like, man, I'm sorry guys, played like shit, and pick it up and bounce back, and we got it rolling, and it put us in an easier bracket, because if we would have won our pool, we would have played. I think we would have played Fabio Marcio, who we played in the finals, in the quarters, and we would have played Ricardo Manuel, who were the reigning gold medalists in the semis. Then that would have put us in the final. So we had a much easier bracket, but we almost lost to Switzerland in the round of 16. We were down 6-0 in the 3rd set, and we ended up coming back from that somehow, and that kind of just like catapulted us to the finals, and as they say, rest is history.
That's awesome. I know it's a 2-week tournament, so it's a little different than other tournaments too, and so you have to really you have to pace it all out, and you have to be really smart how you use your time. But I'm really interested in the bounce back, because that's what this project is about. You say your legs are tired in that first match, and you're maybe thinking about other things, or you're down 6-0 in that 3rd set. What is the mechanism that you use to bounce back in that moment?
I think it's not dwelling on what just happened. Like I could have been like, dwelled on that loss against Latvia, and I could have been, pouting around for a few days, and that could have carried into our next match, where we played Switzerland, who one of the guys won bronze in 2004. So a tough team. But instead, for whatever reason, I just forgot about it, or maybe I don't remember what I was thinking. Maybe I wanted to prove, to myself, to the world, whoever.
That's a good tool, proving to yourself or proving to the world. Yeah.
Yeah. I honestly don't remember what I was thinking or why, but my next match I played great.
Yeah. I'm curious, did you get a little pissed off? Sometimes getting upset as an athlete really does help.
Like I said, I don't remember what I was thinking. But yeah, definitely some people play better angry.
Right.
Usually little defenders.
That's true.
Yeah, I know a couple of them. Todd Rogers, Nick Lucena.
Shout out Todd Rogers. Shout out Nick Lucena.
There's a few of them. Julius Brink.
Casey Jennings.
Yeah, all very well respected players. Great resumes.
Amazing. But I just thinking of Casey, and shout out Casey Jennings. I was inspired by him, how he was able to utilize that emotion and kind of almost intimidate the opponent.
Yeah, for sure. I always liked playing Casey.
Mm-hmm.
It was always fun.
Yeah. Perfect segue to sources. So Phil, another reason why I've asked you to be on this show is that you inspire me. It's not just
thanks.
It's not just what you've done with the and the results that you've gotten. It's just what you're doing now too, and how you continue to pursue your dream of that Olympic, that Olympic championship, and also giving back to the kids. That's awesome. With your academy. So I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about where you get inspiration from.
That's a good question. Well, I inspire to be a better human being, and
Love that.
and whatever that means. Like I don't want to get caught up of doing good and whatever the battle between good and bad. That whole duality. Like some people may think it's good, and other people may think it's bad. So just whatever that means to me, becoming a better person. And I feel like I can, with these kids, I feel like I can, teach them not only volleyball, but, like life lessons, and that's what sports is about. There's a lot of learning lessons that can be used in everyday life.
Yeah.
And I guess that would, I could say that inspires me. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Hey there, sorry for the interruption, but I wanted to give our first sponsor a shout out. This episode is brought to you by West Coast Beach, a year-round beach volleyball club on the west side of Los Angeles in Santa Monica, California. At West Coast Beach, we aim to get 1% better every day, both on and off the court. You can find more info about us at westcoastvbc.com and on Instagram with handle @westcoastvbc. Back to the show. Again, going back to you inspiring me, like I just want you to know that when I was able to play you, that was my first time qualifying in 2008, and you were getting ready to go win the gold medal with Todd. But that was a kind of a highlight for me in my career. So
cool.
I know you blocked me a whole bunch, and you definitely beat me, but it was one of those memories that I still have very clear for me. So.
Nice.
Cool, man. So let's move on to the lightning round.
Okay.
And again, you can answer these however you want, but I'm just going to kind of fly through them. Okay.
All right.
How do you define success, and what does being successful mean to you?
Really, for me, success is winning. We're in the business of winning in sports and beach volleyball. So if you're winning, you're successful.
How do you consider the idea of failure?
I think failure is great. It's something that you can learn from. It's something that it can inspire your next match. Like in the Olympics, losing to Latvia. For whatever reason, that inspired me to play better. And I think failure is a good thing. I read a bunch of whatever self-development, entrepreneur books, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And like an entrepreneur's path to their goal, right? Say this is where they start and this is their goal. It's not like straight for, there's it's a curvy, there's failures and mistakes, and they pivot, and eventually, hopefully they get to their goal, So I think failure is a really good thing, because if you never fail in your life, then you need that, you don't know what it means to fail. So there's no, I can't think of the word right now. So it's driving me nuts. I can't think of this word.
That's okay.
But
I know
anyway,
what you're saying.
So if you just winning, you go into your goal, straight ahead, get into your goal right away every single time, there's nothing gonna be pushing you, because that's gonna get boring. It's gonna be too easy,
Yeah, there's no learning. There's no learning that's happening, right? It's just
or it just, like, if you win, like, that's why it's hard to stay on top. If you keep winning, it gets it gets boring, basically. And then when you lose, you're like, oh, this sucks. Now I want to try hard again, basically,
Yeah. No, that's awesome, Phil. I think I wrote down this word when you said that. You were talking about entrepreneur stuff. I'm an entrepreneur. You mentioned the word pivot. Could you expand on that a little bit? And if you could maybe talk about it from the youth athlete perspective, what does that mean?
basically, if something's not working, you got to do something different.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty simple.
Right.
You know, if you in a match, if you keep hitting a line shot and you keep getting dug or you're hitting out, well, you need to pivot and try something else.
And something that's coming to my mind right now is non-judgmental reactivity, meaning like you just said, if a particular shot's not working, a lot of times I see a youth athlete go, oh, and just have that moment of judgment, and that's not pivoting, that's staying in that stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're a lot of times you're beating yourself down, like you know, you're an idiot, or why'd you do that? You know, like, and that's not helping your self-esteem. That's, you know, that's just you're hurting yourself.
Right.
So it's that's why every kid out there, I'm like, if you make a mistake, that's a good thing, because you can learn from it. You know, make the same mistake. All right, well, you didn't learn from it. Like, and now this is another learning opportunity, and then it changes the perception on a mistake. You know, basically.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. What are the most successful habits that you do on a consistent basis?
I'm actually listening to this book, Atomic Habits.
Cool.
Which I don't know if that's a good one.
Okay.
But right now, my most successful habit probably is my meditation practice. I've gotten almost 2 years straight not missing a day.
Really?
So I think yeah.
Wow.
So I think that right now that would be my most successful habit.
That's so cool. Is it a guided? Are you listening to like an audio, or are you just sitting quietly by yourself? Or
I first just by myself, and now I'm into this guy. His name is Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
who I love, and so I'm doing his guided meditation.
Very cool. Would you recommend that to the youth athlete? I mean, because that's a tough practice or habit to get into. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, if someone when I was 16, if someone told me I got to sit with my eyes closed for more than 30 seconds, I'd be like, get out of here.
Right.
It obviously would be a tool that would help anyone, I think, because you're basically learning to control your mind and your emotions and everything. But I'm not sure if you're going to find many teenagers that want to sit there and, especially with their phones now, or,
right.
You're constantly being entertained. But yes, it would help, but it'd be tough to get them to do it.
I'm like pleasantly surprised to hear so many champions talk about meditation as a tool. Because I use it myself. It's been challenging for me because as an athlete, as an entrepreneur, my mind is always going. I'm sure you can agree. Yeah, but but that moment, it doesn't have to be 15 minutes for me. It's just sometimes it could be 2 minutes, and that's a good habit for myself. So it's really cool to hear that you're doing that too.
Yeah, I think it helps a lot. And what got me into it was Eckhart Tolle, Power of Now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love that, Phil. That's great. Okay, let's keep moving here. Okay, yeah. So for every guest that comes on to the show, I think of a word that best describes you. It's challenging. One word, So I'm going to tell you my word that I have for you, and then I'm going to let you tell me a word that you think best describes yourself.
Okay.
I actually had 2 that I wrote down. The first one was dominant, because I looked at your resume and, you're an all-time great, which is awesome. But the other word,
but that's not the word I'm thinking for myself.
Okay, that's cool. But the other word that came across in my mind is iconic. I feel like you just committed so hard to your craft, and you're now an icon for this game.
Well, thanks. That's very complimentary 2 words. I was thinking of myself as an icon is weird. Because to me, it's just, normal me.
Yeah.
But if I had to pick one word, I would probably say composed or composure. I like, and there's no better way to work on your composure when you're dealing with your own kids. If you can be composed when your 5-year-old girl is yelling at the top of her lungs because she has lost video games that day, especially during the quarantine, that means you got it down.
That's
because,
awesome.
Sometimes, you just react and the emotion gets the best of you and you yell back.
I love that. I don't have this written down, but since you're a girl dad, which is awesome, could you just talk a little bit about how Kobe has impacted your life growing up?
I actually have a great Kobe story.
Okay.
And let me first say I've never been a LA Lakers fan or a Kobe Bryant fan.
Okay.
I grew up on the East Coast, so I'm Southeast, so I'm anti Northeast, New York, Philly, and Boston, and I'm anti LA.
Okay. All right.
Okay. But with that said, in 2008 Olympics, USOC, which is the Olympic Committee, they usually rent like a big facility where all the athletes can go to work out, get some treatment or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And in Beijing, they rented out Beijing University. And there they had a gym where basketball and indoor volleyball practice.
Okay.
And I was there to get some treatment, whatever. And I was walking down this really skinny hallway and no one around. And out pops out Kobe. I'm like, oh, dang, it's Kobe Bryant, And he's coming my way. We're walking. And, I say hi. And he says, he says, what's up? And he smacks me on my chest and says, nice game, big man. Man, we had a match last night. So he must have watched it, I guess. And I was like, whoa, that's freaking awesome. A guy like Kobe Bryant could have just been like, hey, or whatever, just not even said anything to me. But I was like, man, that's pretty cool. Like a guy like that, everyone knows at that point he was like the Michael Jordan of the sport, and he's basically the Michael Jordan of his era,
Right.
But he went out of his way to do that, and I was like, man, that's pretty damn cool.
That's awesome. I remember that year he used to watch all the volleyball games, which is pretty cool. But having an interaction like that with someone like Kobe, that's special, and that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that story. That's awesome.
Sure. And ever since then, I've been a Kobe fan.
Cool. That's cool. Cool, man. Only a few more here. For you, Phil, what is the most important lesson that has helped shape who you are today?
Oh, that's a tough one. It's hard to pick one.
It's a tough question for lightning round, I know.
One would be I tend to look back in the past, and like beat myself up over things I've done or said or whatever. And to me that's so like what Karch said, unproductive thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Because one, you beat yourself. Oh, I beat myself up for it, which is not helping self-esteem.
Yep.
And two, it's a waste of time. You're thinking about something that there's nothing you can do to change it. All you can do is learn from it. So basically the lesson would be, again, learn from your mistakes or mess ups, whatever.
I love that. Oh, sorry. What's that? Can you hear me?
I thought, yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, cool. Can you share the biggest challenge you've been through on your journey?
Um, I've had a few. I would say as far as volleyball goes, it would be, once you get to the top, you have to work even harder to stay on top. And because now you have a big target on your back. Everybody wants to beat the best, right?
Right.
So for me, it was a lot of times once people get to the top, they take all right, I made it. They take their foot off the gas pedal a little bit, where in reality, you got to push it down. So that has been a challenge to me because I'm not the most motivated person. Like, I'll get my lift in and I'll go and practice and, call it a day type of thing. But in reality, you got to do more than what you did before because you got to be better. And that was always a challenge to keep. I don't think I was aware of it, but I definitely, in the past few years for sure, I've definitely taken my foot off the gas pedal, and I probably subconsciously, and my results have showed.
Interesting. As a coach, what's the biggest challenge you see for your athletes?
I think I'm definitely on the John Wooden, like Phil Jackson type. They got to figure it. I'm not going to hold their hands. Yeah, nice. I'm not going to hold their hands to to help them figure it out or whatever. I think you could give them some kind of guidance, but ultimately they got to figure it out themselves, because then one, they get the boost of self-esteem, which for a 15-year-old or whatever 12-year-old is big these days.
Yep.
And then I think they're motivated to kind of knock out other like challenges they have, maybe outside of volleyball.
That's cool. Working with kids, I see focus as being kind of a big challenge, especially with the smartphone generation, the Instagram generation. Do you see that as well?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's probably the biggest challenge they have.
Yeah.
Because it's constant entertainment. I get caught up into it too.
Me too.
Yeah. Like it has like this power to grab your attention, like if it's close, like if I'm sitting eating lunch by myself, I challenge myself not to look at my phone once. And it is hard to do because your brain, your mind or whatever will come up about a million different reasons why you should check your phone. It's crazy.
It is crazy. It's
and what I'll do is I'll just try to listen to those, like, oh man, there's another one. Maybe you should check your email. Maybe you should check Instagram, see if there's anything good on the, like it's crazy. So yeah, that's probably for sure the biggest challenge, because obviously when you're running a practice, there's not just them playing, they're going to have to wait their turn sometimes. And so they have to be, they got to figure out how to just sit still for whatever, a minute until
right.
Which, that's a tough one.
Well, after this quarantine stuff, when we get back to normal, I'm going to give you a challenge that you could give to youth athletes. This is something that I've done, and it's actually kind of worked a little bit. So what I've done is I challenge them to have 1 hour less screen time a week, because you can see the screen time. Yeah, just one a week. That's attainable.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then it becomes a game, and it's like, coach, I got 2 hours less. I'm like, great.
Nice. Nice.
So yeah, just it's a fun little challenge.
You could even throw that like I don't know how you could hold them accountable because of, the phone keeps track of your screen time, but try not to be on your phone within the first 30 minutes of waking up, or whatever that time, 15, 20 minutes.
That's hard. It's hard for me.
Because it's easy to, turn over and grab your phone and right off the bat, this thing is in your face, and and then that, for me, it kind of sets the tone a little bit. So I try to go no phones, but I no browsing on my phone for the first hour. I gotta get, I have my meditation on my phone.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'll pull out my phone to get my meditation. I'm like, oh, see what that news story says, or so it's definitely tough one.
Yeah, that is challenging. All right, how important is the idea of having impact to you?
I'm not so sure if I don't know if I care if I have an impact or not.
Okay.
I guess that's not true. I would like to have an impact on these kids, or some kid I meet at a tournament or whatever, a positive one, of course. But if that doesn't happen, it's all I could do is be myself, and I'm not going to be someone else to have an impact on someone.
Right.
I'll just try to be my best self, and hopefully that impacts people.
Yeah, I totally get that. What brings you joy? What part of your work brings you the most joy?
My work? Man, as far as volleyball goes, competing and winning.
Yeah.
Something that never gets old.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as coaching, which I've only done a few months, but when something clicks for a kid, they're you see it in their face, it lights up,
right?
And that's always a good feeling.
Yeah, totally. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received, and why? From who?
Oh, this is perfect for the times. There's not enough anxiety to change the past, and there's not enough worry to change the future. Which I think this is everyone's worried what's going to happen. What's the point of worrying? It's not changing anything. So
that's awesome.
I like that.
Who wrote that, or who
I don't know
that?
where I heard. I probably saw it somewhere on Instagram, or
okay, that's cool.
Maybe I read it in one of my books. I don't know.
Cool. I love that. It kind of makes me think of "Be Here Now" from Ram Dass. Don't worry about the past. Don't worry about the future. Be here now.
Yeah.
I love it.
It all comes back to being in the present moment.
Really love that. Okay, this is a tough one. Maybe perhaps the best question I could ask you. What is your ultimate why?
I talked a little bit about it myself, as just being I talked about it earlier, but just being my best self.
Yeah.
Best volleyball player. I can be the best husband, the best father, all that.
I love it.
Best coach.
Yeah. Earlier you said just the better human being, right? Just a better human being.
Yeah. Or just the best version of myself, which, by the way, is a never-ending job.
Mm-hmm.
There's always more work to be done.
Love that.
Yeah.
Looking back on your journey, is there anything you wish you could change, and why?
Yeah, there's a lot, man. There's a lot of things I would like to change.
What?
Well, I bought a house. Actually, I was doing this to myself the other night. I bought a condo in 2007 in Ventura at the height of the market, for $570,000. And if I would have waited a year or so, I would have gotten that thing for probably 350.
Okay. You know? Yeah. I got you. I got
stuff
that.
Like that.
Okay.
And then where my brain goes and why this is, it's just my point of it being pointless. I was like, actually, I could have bought, because I was living at Santa Barbara at the time, and it was too expensive to buy in Santa Barbara. I was like, I could have bought, if I would have waited 2 years, I could have bought a duplex in Santa Barbara. And then I went on to Zillow to see how much duplexes are now. And I'm like, oh my God, I would have held on to that. And it's like $1.2 million. And so like doing that to yourself is just, you torture yourself, you know?
Yeah.
And you beat yourself up. And so that's one thing I would have changed. And another thing I would have changed is I didn't really do out of all the years I traveled, I really didn't do much reading, nonfiction, basically. And I wish I would have done more of that.
Cool.
Because man, you have all the time in the world on the road. You know,
yeah.
We basically our days consisted of a practice for 1 hour, because that's all you can get on the world tour, is the court for 1 hour. You find a gym, you go there for a couple hours, and then the rest of the day is like just kind of hanging around. You know?
Yeah.
So I wish I could use that time to be more productive.
Cool. No, that's awesome.
Play like video games and stuff like that.
Right. No, but that's cool. That hopefully whoever's listening to this will be inspired to pick up a book instead of their phone or a video game. That's great. Last couple questions, Phil. So part of this whole project was based on that pyramid of success that we mentioned earlier from John Wooden. And I made a pyramid mostly for me, but now I'm trying to share it with the world and other youth athletes. For me, inspired living is the top of my pyramid, because I think that's what it's all about. Would you suggest that other athletes create something like this? It doesn't have to be a pyramid. It could be a compass. It could be something, but just to know where they're trying to go.
Yeah, I think having some sort of like you said, compass, like North Star guiding you, you know, like the ultimate goal. Like what we talked about, the entrepreneur, like they have his goal, and then they're always working towards that goal. I think is important, because if you just go and kind of putz around your day or whatever, it's a little unproductive and uninspired.
Yeah. Cool. Right on. All right. Last question. Having achieved the peak of athletic achievement, which is the gold medal, what does fulfillment mean to you? Talk to me about winning gold and fulfillment.
You know, fulfillment is like fulfillment in my career is nice, you know, but it's not like I would say, I don't think it's you know, it doesn't define me. You know, I think what happens is a lot of athletes, they define themselves by their whatever, they're a professional athlete, you know, they identify with that, and and then when it's all gone, then what? You know, they're lost.
Right.
So it's definitely fulfillment in your sport or career is nice. You know, it's a great feeling, you know, and there's obviously, you know, it comes with perks, you know, but I think it's real important don't let it define you.
Awesome. I love that. And I couldn't agree more. Phil Dalhauser, I can't thank you enough, man. This has been fun and extremely mind opening. And it's just so cool to kind of get a glimpse of, you know, where you're at with all this stuff, you know? So thank you so much for your time.
Sure. Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it. I talk about this stuff all day.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I want to give you an opportunity just to mention any sponsors or any websites or anything like that.
You know, sponsors have dried up over the years. because nobody wants to sponsor an old washed-up beach volleyball player, but I do have one.
Okay.
And it's important. Clean Skin sunscreen company, which I have a lot of skin to deal with, so it's great for me. So yeah, that's and my Instagram, Phil Dalhauser, at Phil Dalhauser, and my academy website, PDBBA. I always get the B and the D, or the D and the B mixed up.
No worries. I'm going to link it all below, all this stuff. So it'll all be there. Yeah. All right, Phil. Thanks again, man. I really appreciate it. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
All right.